Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our channel, and thank you very much for your continued support. We do this every day because of you. Deputy President is still camping in United States of America, and the latest report that is coming now is that he is supposed to go to White House tomorrow to meet the National Security Council. But this is coming in amidst reports of him going out there to complain about the Kenyan election, especially to the Western, to the U.S. Government. But then people have asked as to what extent is his statements in the U.S. going to help? Can they meddle with the elections? That is the question. And of course, it has also exposed him as a crying baby. Because initially, we had seen someone who was very strong and believed that it is not really about it is not about the Western forces, but it is about the Kenyan voters. So I think I had just to delve deep a bit and look at the National Security Council in US. What is it on? Because I think if we understand the mandate and who really sits there, then it can help us to make projections on what we expect, or rather, why that visit is politically insignificant or significant. According to my article I'm reading here, actually this is the White House website, the National Security Council is the President's principal forum for considering national security and foreign policy matters with his or her senior advisors and cabinet officials. Since its inception under President Truman, the Council's function has been to advise and assist the President and coordinate matters of national security among government agencies. National security among government agencies. That is in the US. Even in Kenya, there is a National Security Council that is chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I think President borrowed this from US because it was not there in the first term. That's chaired by Uhuru Kenyatta, Matiang'i is there, and even Deputy President William Ruto is there. So this is not, Kenya just set up theirs recently, but in US, this has been there. So let's look at the composition of that council. It is chaired by the President, so in this case, Joe Biden. Then its regular attendees are the Vice President, Kamala Harris, who is now also going to attend, the Secretary of States, the Secretary of Treasury, Defense. These are just cabinet officials. These are just cabinet officials from the US, Secretary of Energy, the Attorney General, Secretary of Homeland Security, and representative of the United States of America to the United Nations. This has been there. Now, international development, the Chief of Staff to the President and the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs. So let's look at what are some of his mandates. And for us to better understand, look at this. Under the national security, it's one that facilitates coordination between domestic and foreign policy, as well as among traditional national security, economic security, health security, and environmental security. So if you go through just what this National Security Council is, it directly tells you that it does not have any jurisdiction, or there is no mandate they actually have in making or maybe helping deputy presidents cry in terms of the Kenyan election rigging claim. The issue of the foreign policy is whether to meddle. I don't even think. And that is why what makes me come up with 4 objectives on what I would expect or what we should expect from that visit. But to speak plain truth is that visit is very significant to William Samoei Ruto. Because when he was there, the narrative have been coming out in the country that meeting is insignificant. Now, I want to make it very brief. 5 projections that we'll expect from the William Ruto team there. William Ruto is going to profile on Kenyan election funding in US. Now, this meeting is going to help politically significant. And let's look at that. But before you do that, if you're watching this video and you have not yet subscribed, kindly take a second and subscribe. Now, after the meeting, William Ruto is supposed to hold a fundraiser in one of the hotels in US. Now, having met National Security Council, it's actually going to improve his profile in US. So if there are really financial donors that would want to inject something in his campaigns, I think they're finally getting the legitimacy. Because one of the things that have rendered that US tour a little bit casted aspersions on that tour is this issue of the ICC. And people have been wondering, you know what, he's facing charges at ICC. But then, despite of all that, then getting an audience with National Security Council in US is going to improve his profile. And I feel that is also why they really feel that this is a very important meeting in their tour. The perception that this is also going to create to William Ruto is one thing, that he's more interested to focus on the West, on the East, and on the West. Or rather, he's more focused on the US and the other Europe nations compared to President Uhuru Kenyatta that had more ties with China. So the China-UK, the China-Kenyan ties and also US-Kenyan ties have been on competitive basis. What William Ruto is sending, he's actually sending a signal that in his administration, if he forms the next government, he will be focusing more on the USA. He will be focusing more on ties with the USA. Then that is also going to see how, if China are also interested in him, then you might also see him making a tour on the other end. That is why you see in this National Security Council, they work on economic security, national security, health security, and environmental security. Now, thirdly, that is a meeting by Deputy President to crusade for the bottom-up economic model. Because one thing they have always said is that this was implemented in US and this was implemented by Joe Biden. And so with them seeking that audience, I think without even them coming to tell us what was discussed there, but when the photos are actually captured with Deputy President in White House, he will come out and the bloggers and political supporters will come out to say that, of course, the bottom-up approach, the bottom-up economic model got audience in the White House. That is already a political capital that they are actually looking for. I also feel like this meeting will be there. If it was to weigh on something on Kenya, then he might maybe just talk about the election rigging, and election rigging in the prefix of the handshake. That perhaps the handshake came and the head of the state is committed to manipulate the polls in favor of a candidate, because this has been the script. But as of to what I know, that is going to be inconsequential.